I go, well, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Probably not the best idea right now, you know, so maybe tomorrow, you know, sometime would be good. He said, oh, well, anyway, let's go down on the beach. So we went down onto the beach, and we were sitting there. And first he went for a swim, which was kind of, a little dangerous at that time of night. And it was quite funny as well, because he had a new bodyguard who was not used to what was going to happen, and so everybody was making fun with the bodyguard. Okay, you better go out there. You know, if the boss drowns, you're out of the job. So he went out and swing after Robert round. And, after half an hour, Robert came back in, and we were sitting on the beach talking a bit more, and the sun is starting to come up. And he puts his arm around me and he's going, you know what? We're older men now. Yeah, we're older. And I'm sort of looking at him and I'm thinking, yeah, that's true. And I'm waiting for something. Yeah, we're older men. That was it. But, I kind of got it because we've been friends since we were little boys. And after a while, with your friends, you don't really need to say that much to do things. Anyway, so the next day, I started thinking about it. So I think, well, okay, now is the time to write this. And I've never written a book before. I'd always enjoyed reading, I'd always enjoyed writing, I called Robert, I said, I'm going to write a book. It's going to be the story of the 3 Imaginary Boys, how we started, how it all came to be, because nobody really knows that story. They have an idea of how things, they started in Crawley and it was the late 70s, but they don't really know what made us want to do what we did, because I really like the idea that Joe Strummer had. Joe Strummer said, you can't mess with the chemistry with a band, and that's the truth. We came about the people that are still my closest friends today, which is Robert, Simon, Mike Dempsey, Pearl Thompson. These are people that I grew up with as a teenager. And that's how The Cure came to be, from basically what was a teenage gang of sorts, Anyway, so I called Robert and said, I'm going to start with a book. And then I got home back to Los Angeles, because I've lived in Los Angeles for about 23 years now. Go back to Los Angeles and I think, okay, write a book. What the hell am I going to do? How am I going to write a book? So the first thing I thought was, well, I better not do it at home, because if I do it at home, I'm just going to sit there and go, oh, okay, there's something interesting on TV now. Time for lunch. It's not going to get done. So I rented a small office about a mile away from me, and I went down there. And I think for most of, it took me about 2014 to really kind of get all the ideas together, and which was difficult because I didn't have any diaries or journals, and this thing wasn't ubiquitous back in the 70s, so there were very few photographs to jog one's memory. But I found that by constantly thinking about things, it's like little dominoes. The memories would knock one into the other, and I would get the ideas for the book, and it would all start to come out of nowhere. And in fact, I would regularly wake up at 4 in the morning, which is when you have your best ideas, right? 4 in the morning, and sit bolt upright and pick up the phone and start mumbling into it, and Cindy would wake up and go, what's wrong? Something wrong? I go, no, it's just I've got to get this down, otherwise I won't remember it tomorrow. And so out of that, I excavated the whole thing for the book. And by the time I got that all assembled, I went down to my little office and I sat there 4 or 5 hours a day, 4 or 5 days a week for a year. I just wrote, because by this time I'd interested various parties, like the people that published this book, and I found myself a literary agent, and I started to write, and I started to ask them, okay, well, what's the best thing? Where's the best thing to find out about writing a book, really? And my editor, Ben, very nice fellow, he said, Stephen King wrote a really good book called On Writing, and he said, you should read that, and it gives you lots of hints about writing, which I did. And it was very good. The only thing I disagree with, though, about Stephen King is I won't listen to heavy metal while I'm writing a very loud volume, which apparently he does, which I suppose explains The Shining and stuff. Actually, I listen to ambient when I'm writing, if I listen to anything, because anything with lyrics is not good, because I'll start typing the bloody lyrics. So I started writing, and gradually, like I told you at the beginning, it wasn't chronological, but it became very easy, in the same way as writing music becomes very easy when you're very involved with it. It was exactly the same creative process I found, and that was the thing that excited me more than anything, to find, here I am in the second, I'm sure I can say I'm in the second half of my life now, to find something that I was creatively as excited about as I was with music. And as I gradually went further and further on with it, I didn't really come against too many blocks or obstacles. For the photos, what I decided to do with the photos was instead of calling people up and going, "Oh, scan me your photos, and send them to me," I said, "Don't worry, I'm going to get on a plane and I'm going to come and see you, and we're going to talk. We're going to get your old albums out and we're going to talk about them," which actually was the best thing, because I didn't really use half of the photographs I got. I just ended up talking to people and finding out, like reliving our shared past. So, I mean, one of the people that it was really good to do that with was Dave Allen, our producer, and I hadn't seen him for about 20 years, and we met in London and talked about things, and it gave me a whole different perspective on how things had happened, how things had been, and I put that together with my own experience, and it was very good, very, very instructive. So back in my little office writing, at some point you have to realise to yourself, oh my God, I've got to do over 100,000 words, which is nobody's idea of a short essay or anything. It's a very long process. And so most days I would go down and I'd do 1,000 words or 2,000 words if I was lucky. And like Hemingway said, I would stop before I got to the end of the story each day and leave it for that day and then come back and carry on. So I always had something to write the next day. The only thing I didn't do like Hemingway was go out and get slaughtered, but I did everything else. And one day I was sitting there, and I was thinking, oh, this is only a 200-word day, I can feel it. And I looked out the window and I saw this bus going past, and on the side of the bus it had a billboard and it said, I think it was like the Writers Guild or something, it said, "The secret to good writing is writing." Because that's it, the secret is to sit down and just do it. And so after, I think it was about the end of 2015, I had the first part of the book done, the manuscript, the first draft. And one thing that Stephen King said was, you don't show anybody the first draft. Keep the studio door closed, don't show them. You put it in a drawer when you finished it, come back 4 or 5 weeks later, look at it again, and you'll take at least 10% of it out, because that's the way it works. And so my friend, remember I told you, my teenage friends are still my friends, Michael Dempsey came to visit me with his family. He has 2 teenage boys, which appealed to my teenage niece. And he came to visit us for a month, and I said, "Michael, I'm writing this book." He's like, yeah, can I see it? I said, "No, can't see it, it's in the drawer. Don't even look in the drawer. It's over there, but don't look in that drawer. It's not locked, but don't look at it. If I'm not about, don't look at it." He might have looked at it. And then when he left, I looked at it again, and Mr. King was absolutely right. Good 10% of it you throw away because it's far too much. And eventually, came to the end, I think, probably just sort of like first few months of 2016, I had the final edit done. I even enjoyed the really tedious stuff, the copy editing, where you go through and you look at every single little comma. I counted every comma in my book, by the way, by hand at one point. I don't know why, I had to do it, I remember I had to do it. 1,500 in case you're wondering. I would do them 100 at a time and just mark them off, otherwise you go nuts. Anyway, I did all that, and then I did all the proofreading, which is a whole different set of hieroglyphics that you've never seen before in your life. And I did that for here, and I did it for England. And I had conversations with the lawyers about things you can say and you can't say. Actually, it was harder in England to say things than it was here, but you know, the whole thing is the truth and nothing but the truth, but it's mostly about me. Because, you know, you can't really say stuff about other people, and neither would I want to. You know, that's not the whole point of it. But the other good thing is you can't lie. I found out you can't libel anybody who's dead. You can say what the hell you like about them, it doesn't matter. You know, not there's anybody that's dead that I want to say anything bad about. So, that was all done, and then we had to set up this thing, and this is like, you know, I wanted to come to Northern California at the very beginning, but unfortunately there was an election, we had an election, and there were so many books out about that, I couldn't get into any of the nice bookstores. You know, my son worked at Green Apple for a long time and stuff, I couldn't even get in there. So that's why I'm here now. But when I started, I asked my agent, well, how many events do people normally do for books? Most authors, he said 5 to 10. I think we're going to, by the time we finished the festivals this summer, we'll have done almost 100. So it's more like a rock tour, you know? Except it's a lot more civilised, you know, you're usually finished by about 10 and you can go out for dinner, you know, you're not driving around Pittsburgh at 2 o'clock in the morning looking for something to eat. You know, so it's a lot more civilised, but there, you know, we're a lot more civilised now. I think the other thing I should do is maybe a short reading from the point in time when we became teenagers and we actually became The Cure, because that's the point. It was the summer of 1976, we were about 17, and that was the time when we became The Cure. Now, Robert's parents, they remodeled their house, and they put an extra room on the side of the house, and I think they thought they were going to have family parties in there and stuff, but that didn't happen. We just moved the drums and the guitars, and 3 years later we came out. And that's when the band really started. That's when we were presenting ourselves to the world. But in that interim period, we had to find out who we were, and it was like a weird halfway house. We were halfway between being adults and being children, being teenagers. But that's the genesis of The Cure, and that's the most important thing, because I realised at that time where you go from being a child to being an adult, the people that you went through that with, they know you in a way that nobody else is ever going to know you, and you know them in that way as well. And so I'll just read you that part, and it'll illustrate that point, I hope. The other thing is, there's a character in this, if you haven't read the book yet, there's a character in this called the Guru, and the Guru is actually the nickname we gave to Robert's older brother, Richard, because he looked like the Guru. He was counterculture, you know. I'm thinking about suing Sing Street, because I think they stole our whole story straight out of it, but I'm joking. But there we go. But that's really when we started, the beginning of summer of 1976, and it was a very unusual summer, a bit like today, really. Continuous sun in England is as much of it normally as regular rain in the Sahara.